going to go ahead and get started. So we're starting here. Now that your supply shelf is full, let's promote progress. So if you were able to join us last year, you saw that our theme for last year's event was filling your backpack full of supplies, but we actually realized that for educators and all of you, that you're probably not filling so much your backpack, you're filling your classrooms and all of the knowledge and experience in your binders full of information that you'll bring forward, either sharing with others or using for your own purposes. So we wanted to think about this kind of as your supply shelf being full. All right, so as we go forward, first off, I just want to send a huge round of gratitude to all of you for your engagement, for your participation in the event, for all of our presenters so far during this conference event. Thank you so much for your participation, for sharing your learning and your knowledge, for all of you that have engaged in conversations and topical discussions and breakout conversations and conversations in the chat. Thank you for your engagement, your willingness to be a part of this work, and thinking about how we can promote progress for students with disabilities. Thank you so much to all of the folks that have been leading out the technical side of this work, especially to Mia, who has really been overseeing a lot of all of our technical support, and those who have been responding to the emails and challenges that you have all had getting into the registration system or the event system to get you the Zoom links that you need. Thank you so much for your engagement. Thank you all for all of your work so far in this event. As a reminder, as we think about kind of all of the pieces of the work that we've talked a lot about kind of the components of the IEP and developing a substantively meaningful IEP. We know that none of that work really moves forward without putting in place kind of the supports along the way. So what do we really need to think about as we implement high quality educational programming? We need to think about that educator support, the professional learning and the ongoing support that is needed in order for educators to be able to collaborate with others, to engage families, to support students, and so on. We need to think about the importance of belonging. We heard a lot about that in our initial panel presentation on the first day. We have to focus on our effective instruction, both our especially designed instruction, our universally designed for learning, or UDL, thinking about overarching instructional practices and high quality, high leverage practices that we can implement and use to support students. We need to think about family engagement, and we just had some concurrent breakout sessions that focused on using a telenovela to engage families. So if you didn't get a chance to participate in that session and you're working with some families that are Spanish-speaking families that might be interested in thinking about learning about the special education process through a telenovela experience, check out those slides and those resources on the center's website. And ongoing teaming. We know this is not a one-time process. It's a time for data collection over time, looking at whether the student is responding and making adjustments. Tessie talked about that database individualization process, and we'll have more opportunities for that tomorrow. And all of these different things are helping us to promote progress. We can think about this as our road and our bike being the IEP development for that individual student. Well, what do we need to do to make sure that we don't have roadblocks or potholes, or how we can adapt when we do, because we know that they are forthcoming in any work that we do. So we want you to think about kind of all of these pieces, because we can design and develop the best program for the student, but if we aren't really intentional about the implementation, that's not going to get us to where we need to be. So as we go forward, I want you to just take a second to reflect, right? Think about all the things that you have heard over these past couple of days. Think about what it takes to promote progress for students with disabilities. We're going to use Mentimeter to do this. And so you can see here on the screen a QR code. You can go ahead right now and scan that QR code. Or if you go to menti.com and use the code 72000037, you can enter the Mentimeter. Go ahead and put a couple words or thoughts or reactions that you have. What does it mean for you to promote progress for students with disabilities? What are some of the things that you take away from these past couple of days and the sessions that you've heard that are most important as we think about promoting progress for students with disabilities? So I'm going to leave this QR code up here for just a minute or so that you can take some time to scan that. And then I'm going to flip over to the Mentimeter so that we can see all the words that are coming in. So I'm going to give you just about a minute or so before I go over and see what people's reactions actually are. here and see what people are sharing. All right, so we see some big words here: collaboration, high expectations, belonging. I see communication and advocacy. So many resources and evidence and patience. I love that. Adaptation, understanding, keep them coming. You can see them moving forward as we go. High expectations. I love that that one is so big. Consistency, but also change, right? We're in a space where we need to put in processes and consistent procedures and think about that, but we also need to adapt and be adaptable and reactionary to change. See the importance of family and confidence and testing. All right.
All right. Thank you, Amy. And thank you to our panelists who are here today. We have Bart, Nicolette, and Pamela. And as Amy said, these three individuals do serve as educators and residents for the center. Our EIRs are a group of dynamic educators who work alongside center staff to ensure that stakeholder perspectives are represented in our activities. So the three folks that we have here today do things like review some of our resources, serve as panelists and webinars, and we're really grateful to have them here today and talk about how we can start the school year promoting progress. So our three panelists we have today is Bart Lyman, and he is a school psychologist and professional development coordinator in Wyoming. Nicolette Lesniak, and she is an intensive needs teacher in Indiana, a middle school in Indiana, as well as Pamela White, who is an exceptional student service instructional support specialist and program facilitator in Louisiana. So thank you to the three of you for being here today. We're excited to learn and hear from you. So if we just want to get us started, we can go around and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role and your experiences in supporting students with disabilities. Nicolette, want to maybe start us off?
Yeah, my name is Nicolette Lesniak. I support students with intensive needs in Indiana. So a lot of my students have delays in speech or in communication, as well as other things going on with them. And so my main goal is to really make sure that the general education teachers knows what's going on. So when we go into their classes, they're able to have those adaptations and those visuals to be able to be supported and work with their peers.
Thank you. And Pamela or Bart, you want to jump in?
Wonderful. I'm Pamela White from the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. Prior to my current role, of course, I served as a special education teacher, where I service students in all grade levels with multiple needs. Currently, I provide support to our teachers, both middle school, high school, and elementary schools, who service students with special learning disabilities in a variety of settings. I also facilitate programs for our district. Those programs focus on our students with more severe cognitive disabilities.
All right, thank you, Pam. Bart?
Hi, everyone. My name is Bart Lyman. I work for Regional BOCES in Wyoming as a professional development coordinator, and then my background is in school psychology. I just moved to this role. Previous to this, I worked as a special ed director, have been an MPSS coach, things of that nature. So have really serviced students in a variety of ways, all the way through child find, evaluation, through IEP development and implementation. So have kind of seen that whole process through. So good to be here.
All right, thank you all. And we hear that you all have a lot of experience and you work with different populations in your schools and in your respective areas. And just thinking about the themes and the topics that we talked about over the last couple of days, what are some things that you are planning to focus on to ensure a successful start of the school year for promoting progress for students with disabilities? And this can be for the students themselves, or Pam, I know you work with some staff members. So just thinking about that, what are some things you're really going to focus on to ensure success?
Well, I'm going to be focusing on a sense of belonging, just making sure that when the students are in the classrooms, not just my students, but all students, have a sense of belonging in the classroom. It's not just sitting them in the back of the room. It's not just saying, okay, you're going to sit here, but actually being involved with instruction and with the students within the class. And then also working with the general education teachers and the interventionist in regards to the PBLs. And making sure that they are modifying lessons and we're working as a team to get all the students' needs met.
Awesome. That's great. And I know we heard a lot about belonging the last couple of days, so it's just great to hear that, we're planning on really implementing those ideas in our school year and making sure that we really focus on that topic, both in the classroom, out of the classroom, and ensuring that we really capture that sense of belonging of all students. So thank you for that. Pamela?
Well, this school year, our aim is really focusing with all of our teachers, elementary, middle, and high school, on high level practices and specially designed instruction. So just getting our teachers to understand that many of those high level practices are practices that they are familiar with, that they have used and currently use in the classroom setting. They may not have heard the term high level practices connected with those practices. So we are really, really focused this year on just really implementing those practices in all of our school settings across the district.
Awesome. Thank you. And Pam, I know you were saying a little bit earlier that you're kind of hosting some professional learning for your staff on these topics today and tomorrow. And I know we'll kind of get an opportunity in a little bit to touch on some progress resources if you want to think about some that we might be utilizing in some of those PD sessions coming up. And Bart, anything come to mind for you either on these similar topics, different topics on ways you might be ensuring success?
I love what Nicolette said about belonging, but I mean, how can you go wrong? All such great topics. I think for me, collaboration stuck out a lot just because I want to try to continue to break down those barriers between regular ed and special ed. Also, just making sure that my assumptions about what regular ed folks know, I don't know, are correct. And if they're not, then try to help them with that, just so they can play a more meaningful role in the process of implementation and development of IEPs. The other thing that really stuck out to me, internal consistency of IEPs. Obviously starting with the present levels and making that the foundation, but then seeing those pieces all the way through the IEP. I think that could be really powerful, both for special ed teams and regular ed practitioners. So those are the two things I want to focus on.
Awesome. Thank you. And I love that idea of that collaboration piece. And I was speaking with someone earlier who was a general educator who was joining us today. And it's just, great to get those different views and perspectives as well, and really ensuring that the whole IEP team is collaborating and ensuring success for those students. So thank you for sharing some of those. And I guess just thinking about those topics as well, or those things that you shared as well as others, if you have any tips that you'd like to share with people who are here today, within your role, how do you ensure that successful start of the school year? And do you have any tips that you can share with people who are here today, either in your role right now or in your experiences? I'd like to speak on that a little bit and some tips for ensuring a successful school year.
I mean, yeah, the first thing that I do is, I know as my teacher role, I go in and meet with a general education teacher and say, hey, I have these kids in my classroom. I want to walk you through the IEP. What events or things you have coming up? What do you need from me? So it's more of a collaboration kind of a thing. It's more like, okay, we're going to work on American history. We're going to work on this unit. I need this visual, and this visual. And then once I get those to them, I show them how to use them. Just more of a coaching on the sidelines kind of a thing, while they're doing the instructions, and then in turn coaching my peer professionals who are going to be going in and out of the classrooms as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nicolette. That sounds great. And is that something that is kind of an ongoing process throughout the year, or is it more in the beginning of the year? If you don't mind speaking just a little bit more about that collaboration piece with the general education and interventionists.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process, and depending upon the student, you might be collaborating with them 3 or 4 times throughout the week, depending upon the parent you're coaching to, because I also coach parents. So if they need something, I show them how to use the curriculum and how to use the things at home. So it's an ongoing process, not just a one time and then we're done. We're constantly going around in a circle, making sure that students' needs are being met, and putting the student at the center and everyone around them supporting them.
That's great. And, we know how important that collaboration piece is. And sometimes it's difficult to find the time to really communicate and collaborate with how busy our days are. And so we know it's an important piece, and it's great to hear that you really see that as a tip that can ensure success for promoting progress with students and disabilities. All right. And Pamela, anything else you'd like to speak on with that?
Yes, definitely. With regards to collaboration, it's extremely important. Collaboration between home and school, and especially collaboration amongst those instructors on the campus. Quite often, our special education teachers and regular education teachers have a very difficult time finding time for collaboration. So another thing that we're going to be focused on this year is helping them to be purposeful with planning collaboration and assisting our teachers with ideas of how to plan that collaboration. So we're going to be providing that information and also some guidance on when you meet to collaborate, what should you discuss? What should you be talking about when you're collaborating? So we're going to be doing that with our regular education and our special education teachers, as well as our school counselors, because it's important for school counselors to collaborate with those teachers as well. So we're really going to be pushing forward with the effort of purposeful planning to collaborate.
Yeah, that's great. And that idea of being purposeful and really intentional on where those conversations are going. So we're not just meeting and not making any progress or decisions there. So really scheduling the time and ensuring that, like you said, it's purposeful, it's intentional, and we can get stuff done in the time that we are able to meet with each other. Bart, how about you? Any tips that you can share either in your current role or with your experience as a special education director in ensuring success?
Yeah, I agree. I love that Pamela used those words: purposeful, intentional, planning. And for me, the practical tips that I guess I use are really just making sure that wherever I am, in whatever meeting and whatever agenda, that I'm lining out those focus areas. So I said collaboration and internal consistency of IEPs, listing those, talking about those, really being thoughtful about the why behind them. So taking time to, I guess, relate that back to a student's progress and access to regular ed and how that is the driving purpose here. I think in the past, especially as a school site, I would often get into the legalities of things and people being accountable and all of that is true, certainly. But I guess just appealing more to, I guess, why people are in education, just caring and wanting students to do well. So just, again, even though these are all good ideas from my standpoint, taking the time to develop that foundation so people can buy in up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And a question just kind of came in the chat that I think we can all touch on, but Mary Ann says something specific to what you mentioned, Bart, about the collaboration between general education teachers and special education teachers. And kind of with that said, and anyone please feel free to speak on that, but any resources or tips or ideas to really enforce and support this collaboration or training in schools between special educators and general education teachers, and any ways to kind of enforce that idea and show that that's important with staff in schools.
Yeah, if I could definitely add to that, many of our schools, if not all of the schools, conduct grade level meetings. Quite often we see those participants in those grade level meetings as the regular ed teachers, and sometimes our special education teachers feel they don't belong in those meetings, but our teachers should be in those meetings. They need to be in those meetings. So when regular ed teachers discuss standards that are being addressed, or when they're reviewing student work, district expectations, the special education teacher should be there having those same discussions. The special education teacher should be there sharing student work samples, getting ideas. So I definitely believe it's really important for our special education teachers to be involved with those grade level meetings or those planning meetings that are being held by the general education teachers, so that in itself is going to be a really strong force to help with that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of touching on that and with some experience from the Progress Center and some trainings that we have done is that, we've really seen success in training general education teachers and special education teachers together and really enforcing that collaboration, but also making sure that everyone is knowledgeable about those topics. So everyone is there to provide support for students with disabilities. So thank you, Pamela. Nicolette or Bart, either of you have any other tips or ideas or resources that might really support that collaboration and really getting general ed and special educators to work together?
Yeah, I attend our PLC meetings that we have for the whole district. And so they break it up by grade band, and then we attend different meetings by grade band or subject. And then with my paraprofessionals, I have a binder that I use with them in regards to everything they need to be trained on. It has like, and then we meet like between every 15 to 20 minutes every week about things that's going on. At the end of the day, they fill out a form with like what worked, what didn't work, how can we improve on it. And if their IEP plan, if a student's IEP plan changes, I have that quick meeting with them. Here is what changed on their behavior plan. Here's now we have to track the data. Or here's now we have to do this. And just getting them their feedback, because sometimes I get busy, but they're out with the kids. And so they can give me that immediate feedback of what actually is working, what isn't working. And I can fix the plan and then go back to the other teams like, hey, we need to fix this. So it's a lot of communication, but it's helpful to have a binder with everything you possibly can use with them. And don't just give them the snapshot of the IEP. I know that some schools do that. I give them the whole full IEP and highlight the information that's important.
Yeah, that's great. I really like that idea of the binder kind of being there and having all those resources, in one spot for you to use and kind of look through together, as well as following up right when you said when the IEP might have a change and making sure that everyone that is involved in that process for that student and involved in providing education for them, is really aware of those ongoing changes and updates that are being made to the document. So thank you for sharing that. Bart, anything else you'd like to add?
One thing I did was flip the PLC model a little bit on its head, in the sense that I had my related service providers look at the teachers and their understanding of special ed, particularly IEP meetings and problem-solving meetings, and having those related services really go through and say, okay, what is it that we're looking for regular ed to bring to these meetings, or what do they need to understand to have an impact? And so much to their chagrin, they did it. And then I had them go to the grade level team meetings and just start a discussion in a very non-threatening way. What do you want to know? Here's what we're thinking as far as helping you. And then even prolonging the development of those materials and understanding beyond the grade level team meetings. So I thought that was really helpful, because it had everyone walk through that process instead of me stepping in or someone else stepping in and saying, okay, I'm the expert, here's what you need to have, right? And so that seemed to be pretty impactful.
Yeah, thank you, Bart. And that kind of just seemed to really cover a lot of things that we just talked about, being intentional, being purposeful, having that bi-directional relationship and communication between everyone who's involved in the programming for the student. So thank you all for sharing. And another question did come in the chat that I would love to hear from the three of you about your experiences. And when working with students with disabilities, what role does the gen ed teacher have with self-contained special education and in the IEP? And if anyone has any experience with that, I would love to hear a little bit more about that to get that question answered, or if you want to think on it for a second. But if any of the three of you have anything to share on that topic.
Well, all of my students are self-contained. And what I do a lot is I partner with the general education teacher and says, hey, you guys are, it's 8th grade, goes to focus on DNA. So what do I need to do for my classroom for the 8th graders? And just having that partnership, so they're still having exposure to the grade level content. And the same thing with the 6th graders. I do 6th, 7th, and 8th, whatever they're focusing on for English or for math. I try to align it so that you go out into the general education, or they're talking in the library, or they're talking, anywhere in the building, they know the other kids are talking about, at least have some familiarity of the topic, so they don't feel like they're not excluded. They actually are belonging to that conversation. So a lot of collaboration.
That seems to be the theme today, is that collaboration piece. And Pamela or Bart, anything you'd like to add there?
Definitely. Working with regular education teachers, what I encourage the teachers that I support to do, and what I also did when I was in the classroom, was the regular education teachers, I asked those teachers to share their lesson plans with me. And so that I could follow along with the regular education teachers taught those skills, I made sure that my students learned those skills, of course, with the adjustments and modifications needed based upon their IEP. Regular education teachers also shared assessments. They shared those assessments with me ahead of time so that those assessments could be modified to meet the needs of my students. So literally, what we see happening in the regular education classroom, our students should be learning those skills as well, of course, with the appropriate accommodations and modifications. So in the collaboration, going back to that word collaboration, sharing of lesson plans, sharing of resources between the special education teacher and the regular education teacher, even when the special education teacher is developing the IEP and developing IEP goals, getting some feedback from the special education teacher, especially those teachers that have a lot of knowledge in specific content areas. Seeking assistance from those teachers to get feedback and information needed to develop IEP goals that are appropriate for the students.
Yeah, thank you, Pam. Bart, anything you'd like to add, or we have, I think, time for one more question if we'd like to kind of jump in there. All right, so just one last question before we kind of wrap up this panel. And we know that the three of you as our EIR a little bit familiar with some of the resources that we have at Progress Center. And I know we shared a lot of resources and information and materials over the last 3 days, but we just would like to ask the three of you is what, if any, Progress Center resources that you use or that you're familiar with do you think would be helpful for educators or administrators or families, even students, as you help prepare for a successful new year? If anyone wants to jump in.
I'll jump in. Definitely the IEP tips sheet is an extremely valuable resource. If we're looking to implement special design instruction for our students, that starts with a well-developed IEP. So the IEP tip sheet can help to guide our special education teachers, to guide educators in ensuring that the components required by IDEA are included in that IEP. So that following that tip sheet, that along with this statement of services, those tools combined together can help educators develop a very strong IEP that can then be used and implemented to provide that special designed instruction.
Thanks, Pam. And I know we hear a lot about those tip sheets, and they really are an excellent resource.
Definitely.
Nicolette?
Yeah, I would say the family engagement and family partnership is really important because the families would know what's going on too as well. And if they know how to further support their kids, they can actually, do more at home and make more of a partnership. And I also would use the database decision-making tip sheets too as well. Just like when you're looking at that data, don't just look at the data, not just the student's name. And then we can go ahead and develop our lesson plans and group the kids accordingly, not just who's sped and who's not sped, which actually can help and support all learners in the classroom.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicolette. And Bart, before we hop off, anything you want to add about some resources from the Progress Center?
I just want to say how awesome all the resources are. It really depends on what you want to do. I mean, the webinars are great. I've used those to check my own thinking, mentioned the tip sheets, just from a comprehensive standpoint, even using the tip sheets as like checklists for those different areas is helpful, but I love all the resources. I think any of them could be helpful. So.
Awesome. All right, we just want to thank the three of you again for joining us and serving on this panel. It was really helpful and useful to hear from all of you. And we know that these tips will really ensure that everyone here across the nation will have a great and successful start to the school year. So thanks again. And Amy, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Riley. I'm going to share my screen again, and I wanted to make sure that we just took a little bit of time. We've shared a ton of resources. We've shared a ton of links over the past couple of days, but I know sometimes that's challenging to figure out, like, oh, I saw this link, but where do I find it? How do I get back to some of this information? So just wanted to give you a quick high-level overview of some of the places where you can find some of these key resources on the Progress Center website. Under the development tab on the website is where you're going to find a lot of the information about that IEP document. You'll see there's these accordions that open around the present levels for all of the tip sheets that we were talking about before, the webinars that are related to the present levels, and so on. And you can see accordions for each of the different components of the IEP, though some are clustered together. At the bottom, my go-to shop, if I ever can't figure out where those tip sheets live, and those IEP tip sheet series, you can see that right here as one of the featured resources. There's also a learning module that's here that goes over all of those IEP components, and the IDEA website from the Department of Education, a quick one-stop shop to get there, right? So you sometimes might need to want to go back to the IDEA website itself. You can find that information there. So these are on the bottom of that development page. You can see some other resources, a great module that the IRIS Center developed, as well as some other resources that are available there. Under the implementation tab, if my computer works as it should, you will see, again, some resources here that are related to the instructional practices Tessie talked about this morning, the 6 instructional practices. You'll see the information around belonging and some resources around engaging students in progress monitoring and goal setting that we did a webinar with some folks in the field a couple years ago. You'll see some resources related to data collection and ongoing teaming and collaboration and family engagement and so on. Under that news and events tab is where you'll find the information for the Prepping for Progress, as well as all the new resources and information and announcements. So you can see here our page for this year, right? 2023, the event archive for all of those materials. If you're thinking, oh, these were great information, but I wonder what happened last year in 2022, you can go ahead and click on that and see all of the information and all of the sessions that were shared last year. And then over under the resources and tools tab, you'll see curated resources for different audiences. So if you're an educator, you might look at the educators tab. If you're a local leader, you might think, oh, let me find some resources and tools that are really important for me as a local leader. And the families and students, we just heard about the importance of those voices as well, and all of the different tools and resources that are available for them, as well as resources linked from other centers that might help support families and students. Same for faculty and PD providers. And then this is where you'll find those stories from the classroom videos as well. We saw Zuan's video. I know many of you saw Billy Pickens in the High Expectations video. These videos a lot of times have companion resources that can help you facilitate conversations around each of them. The training tab is another great tab to go to for all of the self-paced online modules. So there's a good collection of modules here, and we're continuing to add to those. These are all in our learning management system, and you can get the certificates of completion for completing those different modules. So that's a great resource for you to go to as well. And if you ever have any questions about any of this, go ahead and contact us. If you're interested in learning more about our great educators and residents, you can find them under the About tab, as well as our staff and our partners and advisors and the folks that we're working intensively with and as our partnership sites. So lots of great information, everything you can find in the all resources and tools and the search functionality up here. So if you're looking for a specific resource or you're looking for information, that's another great place. You can do a keyword search or search by a certain type of resource. So I'm looking for an online module, or I'm looking for a podcast, I'm looking for tools. These are all available here for you to engage with. So with that, I'm going to flip us back over to our presentation because I want to just give a little bit of time. Mia's going to put this in the chat as well. We're going to ask you to fill out a short evaluation. Tell us how we did. Tell us what we can improve. We know one of the things that we can improve is probably the system to get you into all of these sessions because it didn't work as smoothly as we had hoped. But we want to hear from you. Which sessions did you really like? What worked well? Where were some challenges? How can we be better in the future? So we're going to give you just a second here to pull that up on your QR code there. Go ahead and click on that link in the chat. It will only take you about 5 minutes. We will send you a follow-up for this as well. These are just for the sessions that have happened today and yesterday. There will be a separate evaluation for the sessions for NCII tomorrow. So really focus in on these sessions for these past couple of days and the system as a whole and the event as a whole, but we want to hear from you. So as I'm just closing out with these last couple slides, go ahead and fill out that survey. You can multitask. I think these are just some overarching informational slides as we conclude. One of the things that you probably are thinking about is the sessions and getting access to those recorded sessions. We've mentioned that many times. I showed you where those were going to be housed on the website under that event archive for this session. We will work as quickly as we possibly can to clean up those recordings and post those recordings. We'll work on getting them cleaned up, captioned, and transcripts provided for those sessions. So check back quickly for those recordings, and we'll make sure that we get those to you. Also, we know many of you are interested in certificates of attendance for this event. As I mentioned earlier, we will work on collating all of the different sessions that you came to across the event and provide you a certificate of attendance for all of the different sessions you attended. We are going to count your attendance for at least 75% of a session, recognizing there's some coming and going that might have happened with technology and some other things, but for your engagement in that session, that is kind of our bar for what counts as engagement. If you have any questions about any of that, or you realize that your Zoom had a very weird name and you want to make sure that you're getting the credit for the sessions you attended, go ahead and email us at the Progress Center. We will follow up. If you're not sure whether or not you marked in your registration that you wanted a certificate of attendance, but you do want a certificate of attendance, go ahead and email us as well. We can make sure that we get those to you. So we want to make sure we do that. It might take us a couple minutes to be able to do that because we've had a lot of different sessions and we have to look at the data across all those different sessions. So look out for those within the next couple of weeks. We will send them out on a rolling basis over time as we get them completed. And as always, connect with us on Facebook, on Twitter at K-12 Progress, sign up for our mailing list. Many of you marked that you were interested in that when you registered for the session, and we'll get you on the mailing list. That is our best place to go for any new information coming out from the center. We have lots of new resources that are in development that we hope will be released sometime soon. We've got some new events coming up in the next couple months, so stay tuned for more information. Look out for us, share information, share recommendations through the and tag us on these Facebook and Twitter posts so that we can learn from you all as well. And then finally, if you thought we were done after 2 days, there is more. There's more opportunity tomorrow. These are the NCII sessions, and this is the outline of the session agenda for tomorrow. We will start, and you'll see it looks very similar to the session today. We will start at 11 o'clock. We'll have a 1-hour opening general session. Then we'll have that 30-minute break for lunch or snacks or whatever you might need from 12 to 12:30. We'll have 2 rounds of concurrent sessions again, from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern and 1:45 to 2:45 Eastern. Those sessions will be repeated. There are 3 options for the concurrent sessions there. Apologies. And then we'll take a little bit of a break and we'll have a closing session from hearing from some implementers that have really put DBI into practice in their schools and districts and so on. So we're excited for those opportunities tomorrow for NCII. There's lots of great sessions, the introduction to intensive intervention, thinking about the taxonomy of intervention intensity. We know many of you were interested in progress monitoring and data collection. So there's going to be sessions both on academic progress monitoring and behavior progress monitoring. And then, as I mentioned, learning from the lessons learned from past implementers of DBI and really hearing their experiences as well. So with that, thank you all so much again for these past couple of days. We appreciate your engagement in these 2 days of progress sessions and look forward to your participation tomorrow in the NCII sessions. Please fill out that evaluation survey. Let us know how we did, how we can improve. And thank you again for all of your work. I will see you again tomorrow in my hat for NCII. So thank you again. Have a great night and we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow.